All right. Good afternoon, everybody. It's so wonderful to be here with everyone and to learn together and to be sitting beside my amazing wife. Thank you for joining us. We are just the last week we spoke about the trait of happiness, which was way number 8. And now this week we're going to talk about the 9th trait that our sages give us as the tools to maximizing life. So what was happiness? Happiness, we said, was giving us the ability to have the journey of life be with joy. We don't arrive, we remember we mentioned this, we don't arrive one day at a place called happiness, right? It's the journey that we take that gets us through life with happiness, okay? And it's a decision more than it is a destination. So what would be the natural next step after we have established that happiness is the tool that we need? The next is being careful of the influences that come into us. And that is the trait of purity. Purity, okay? Now, most people, when we think of the trait of purity, will say purity reminds them of, what do you see that says 100% pure? 100% pure. Right? Well, olive oil, right, will be 100% pure, extra virgin olive oil. What else do we have 100%? It's like cotton, 100% cotton. It's like whatever it is, it's like we think that it really what it means is that there's no outside influence to what it is that you're going to be involved with. So when we talk about purity in Judaism, what we're talking about is really not allowing outside influences infect us. Okay, not allowing outside influences, being very, very careful and cautious about those outside influences. All right, so we'll start with that. And just 2 questions to keep in mind is that what comes to your mind when you think of the word pure? All right, what comes to your mind? What do you think when you think of the word pure? This is a pure person, or right? You think of a certain form of holiness, so like a purity that comes with it, an innocence that comes with it. There's right now it could be we have different definitions of what pure means. Okay, but that's just think about what is your definition of pure. And the second question to think about is what is a pure person? Does it mean soul? Does it mean action or deed? Does it mean pure in thought? Right? And we'll get into this over the course of the class today. So,
I think, everyone always talks about guard your tongue. There's a very big concentration in Judaism about watching your mouth and what you say and what you do, right? Things you say, lashon hara. And it's also important to think that we have to also guard our minds, what goes in. We went out for dinner last night with some siblings, and my fortune cookie, I don't remember exactly what it said, the quote, but something about how all actions have an ancestor called thought or something like that. I don't know. I don't remember the exact quote, but basically it's just our thoughts are important. Like what we think about dictates our actions. What we think about dictates how we view ourselves, how we view the world. So many things are controlled by our mind. So it's important to be careful about what we put in our mind, and that's like to filter out the bad stuff so that we make sure that our thoughts and our actions are better. So.
Right. So essentially we're born pure, right? And that's one of the reasons we mentioned previously. Why do people smile when they see a baby, right? Because what you see is purity. You see it's unfiltered, it's unadulterated. There's no, right? It's pure happiness, it's pure joy, and it's a pure soul, right? We say this every morning in our prayer. We say, Elokai nishama shenatata bi tehorahi. The soul that God, the soul that you bestowed within me is pure. right? It's pure. That means that we have the ability to maintain that purity. And what we pray for is for that purity to continue to be unadulterated, to have nothing else other than that connection to God. All right? Let's see what that means. So, pure means, like we said, no adulteration, not allowing, we are the product of our environment. We are the product of our environment. So if we put ourselves in an environment that is a positive influence, we will be influenced positively. If we put ourselves in an environment that is not positive or negative influence, then we'll be influenced negatively, right? This is the fact of life. It's a very interesting thing that when I was doing some research this morning on influence and how marketing companies use influencers to influence their products. So, for example, anybody here heard of Nike, right? So Nike pays a fortune of money to have, these different athletes have their names, lend their names to their gear. So you'll have a Jordan shirt, or you'll have a Shaq, or one of those other famous athletes, right? Or JJ Watt, right? And everyone's like, JJ Watt. If JJ Watt says it's a great sneaker, it must be a great sneaker. If he wears it, I want to wear it. And the idea is that what they're trying to do is create a culture where, like, you'll feel left out if you're not part of this. And it influences. It has the ability to sell many, many millions of pairs of sneakers, right? Because some influencer said that this is what should be. But we, as intelligent people, need to be very careful about those influencers. We need to be careful about those influences, because what are we giving up for that influence, right? Potentially purity. That could be the same, by the way, with movies. That could be, you think of the whole world of advertising, we're influenced. That's the reality, is we are influenced by all of the things that we see, by all of the things that we hear. But the real question is, are we allowing ourselves to be influenced in a negative way? And that really is the question that we need to have an answer for, right? Are we allowing ourselves to be influenced in a negative way? Okay, I'll share with you my own personal story. When I think I may have said this in the class here, if not in this class. If I said it before, please forgive me. But when we lived in Brooklyn, I was about 9 or 10 years old, and I was once in a fight with my brother, and I used a word that shouldn't be used by any nice Jewish boy. And I remember my mother was a little bit in shock, and she said to me, just wait till Abba gets home, right? Till your father gets home. And my father gets home, and I remember this as clear as day. He sits me down lovingly on his lap at the front porch of our house, and he says to me, I'm not upset that you said what you said. I just want to ask you a different question. Where did you learn this from? And I pointed right across the street. I said, you see that public school? Right over there. I played with all the, other, non-Jewish kids, right? That, African American friends and Italian friends and Puerto Rican friends, right? And we'd play basketball together. And we'd play, all these other sports games together. And that's the way they would talk. So you're influenced by your environment. And my parents, a few weeks later, went upstate to Muncie, New York, and found a new home for us, because they said, over there we don't have public schools. Over there we don't have those influences. You can't blame a child who's being influenced by his environment if you put him into that environment. I think that that's a great uh, lesson for us as adults, as grown adults, to recognize the importance of our environment. If we put ourselves in a good environment, we'll be influenced positively. If we put ourselves in a negative environment, we will definitely be influenced in a negative way.
It's the world today. The world today, there's so much more out there. There's so much more outside influences. You're not sitting in your little bubble, just exposed to everything you want to see. So there's so much potential for bad, and hopefully there are opportunities for good influences out there also. But there really is, like online, it's so bad. There's so much that makes people feel bad about themselves or feel whatever it is, and it's just, yeah, these influencers, it's a dangerous thing, all these influencers and all these social media and everything, and it clutters up your brain. So I think we all need to learn how to filter in our brain. Like, you see 1,000 things a minute, 1,000 things an hour, whatever it is, right? You have to decide, do I want to let that into my brain or just let it go? Don't take it in, because once you start taking in certain things, you start seeing, like, someone who's constantly obsessively scrolling through social media, and let's say for women it's like beauty standards, and in their mind they're like, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not this enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not, you know, if they're like, I'm stupid or I'm ugly or I'm this, and they keep thinking that it's gonna affect it, that effect really affects a person. It goes into your thoughts and your actions, and it's how you view yourself. Whatever you put in your mind affects you. So it's so important to not let all these outside influences, and we get so caught up in like stuff, like, even, let's say, shows or stuff. Kids are like, our baby Hadassah, she's 2 years old, like this baby shark. You put it on, put on like baby shark in front of her, and like she's glued to this, and it's scary because, I mean, I think it's fairly innocent, annoying, but fairly innocent. So, like, kids are watching so much stuff, and it really, it's I don't know. It's like it's really nuts what goes into kids' brains and what they're thinking about, and things that kids are exposed to. You know, I don't, I don't know.
You know that companies pay an exorbitant amount of money to have their product featured on a movie. So, for example, Kleenex tissues or Coca-Cola, they'll pay, means, and the producers of these movies or shows will put it out there. We're going to be having a soda being drunk in middle of the show, and it could be your soda, right? And they'll pay a lot of money to be that featured, box of tissues or soda or a car on the movie, so that it advertises that, and that has an influence. Even subliminal messages have a tremendous influence. So when we put ourselves in a positive environment, what will happen is we will be influenced positively by our environment. Um, we are also, our sages tell us that we are what we think, and if we think positively, we will become positive. We spoke about this last week, that if you set yourself um, and determined to be happy, then you'll be happy, right? And you won't let outside influences, affect you. I just want to mention, Zehava said about filtering in the information that we have. I've shared this numerous times in our classes, that my rabbi, a very great man, lives in Jerusalem, Rabbi Yitzchak Berkowitz, born in New York and raised in New York, and went to Israel and raised his family there, lives there, has an unbelievable institution called the Jerusalem Kollel. And the Jerusalem Kollel is a training ground for rabbis. It's an unbelievable institution and really does amazing, amazing things. I'm very privileged to be an alumnus of that institution. And he sent out once a memo to all of his students saying that the internet is a very dangerous place. And as we know, the Torah says that no one is trustworthy when it comes to matters of sexuality and things like that. And therefore, he is declaring that any of his students that uh, do not put an internet filter on their computers, don't even bother communicating with me anymore, right? You think like, wow, that's a little bit harsh, right? But the idea is, if you care about your own spirituality, you will invest in your own spirituality, right? And that, to me, I think is a very, very powerful message that he's giving to students, that we need to be very, very careful for our own spirituality and protect it. That doesn't mean that you're going to do terrible things. It doesn't mean that you're going to we're not making any assumptions, right? The idea here is that we need to be protectors of our own environment. And if we aren't, then we could be negatively influenced if we're not careful. Okay? So that's the idea, is to put that protective measure. I'll give you another example. A lady told me a while back that she has a group of friends she's been going out with every week. They go out together and they drink coffee at the coffee shop. And I said, it's very, very nice. What's the problem? She says, well, you don't understand. She says, what do you think we do the entire time? We talk about everyone. The entire time that they're there, they talk about this person. Did you see her? Did you see that? Did you see that? Da, 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 da. And they're talking about everyone. She says, you know what? I'm learning a little bit, and I know that that's not a positive thing to do. It's not a positive thing. The Torah frowns upon Lashon Hara, more than just frowns upon. There's 17 different commandments restricting negative speech and gossip about other people. It's a pretty severe thing, right? And she's like, I feel like it's not a good environment for me. What should I do? I said, well, it's your choice. You can either say, I'm going to be a hero and I'm going to go and I'm not going to listen and I'm not going to talk. Well, most of us are not that superhuman. Or you can say, I can't go anymore. I can't go anymore, right? Because this is having a negative influence on me.
Or you could try to.
Or you can try to change the topic, right? And that would be the right the ultimate goal is to keep your friendships, no problem, but see if there's a possibility that you can change and influence them in a positive way. You know, the Mishnah says that one time a community came to a rabbi and they said to the rabbi, you know what, why don't you come and live with us in our place? So the rabbi said no. The rabbi said, no, I'm not going to take the job offer. This is a Mishnah, by the way, right? Mishnah in Ethics of Our Fathers. And our sages explained, why did he say no? He said, because if they would have asked, say, Rabbi, influence us, Rabbi, inspire us, that would be good. But what did they want? They said, come live with us in our place, meaning become one of us. Become one of us, that I'm not willing to do. If you're asking to be influenced in a positive way, right, then I want to inspire. That's the job of a rabbi, is to inspire the congregants. It's to elevate and to. But if you want me to move in with you guys and be part of the clan, right, then I'll just be influenced and become one of you.
I was just talking to someone who was looking for a house, and they said they were looking for a house, and they were ready to put in an offer and close, and they really, really loved the house. And then they decided to look at who the neighbors were, and they found out who the neighbors were, and they really felt that these weren't people that they wanted to be around. They weren't people they wanted their kids to be around. And they were very torn because they were looking for a house. It seemed like everything else was perfect. So, okay, so the neighbors aren't like the best people, so you'll find other people to hang out with. And they were very, very torn. And in the end, they decided she went with her God. Her husband was like, let's just close. And she said, no, I'm not doing it. And she didn't let go of the house. And afterwards, it turned out there were like some really, really serious issues with the house. And she just made her feel better about her decision. But really, the people we're around, our friends, besides just society, social media, everything, the friends you're with, the coworkers. You could have a good job, but it's in a terrible environment. So it's important. I'm not saying don't take the job, but you have to. It's always important to be careful that whatever situation that we're in, just to not let it get in. Our brain really our brains are really so powerful. We use there's so much potential there. We use like a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of our brain's potential, and it's kind of like a pretty big waste in the human life story. But we just why do we let in so much bad? Like, we have to learn to filter it out and take in good and just bring in positive thoughts, positive influences, positive things, because it really, really will affect us. And a big part of what we're talking about with this purity, a lot of that's just concentrating also, right? Concentrating on proper things. because when you concentrate on something, that really become like real concentration, like full total concentration, that really helps you internalize and become um, better people. When our thoughts are better, when we're concentrating on better things. We have kids. We're able to, as kids, there's so much in our brains, right? Especially women. Our brains are like, Aryeh says to me sometimes, like, what are you thinking? I'm like, you do not want to know. Like, it is a mess up there. Like, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on right now, right? I have like 467 tabs open in my brain. And like, like, shut them all down, right? And we're always like so busy. We're always like, so many thoughts, so much this, so much that. It's so hard to concentrate. I think like for women, it's hard. And if you have ADD, it's hard. So for some people, it's like you're all over the place, right? And our minds, like, we need quiet in our minds to just like process and concentrate on what's important and filter the right things in and just like let it affect us in a positive way. So when we have like so much noise in our heads, like like Aryeh, like when we go to sleep, Aryeh's like 3, 2, 1, right? He's out. And my brain, I'm like, turn off. Like, I'm like, go to sleep, right? And our brain's just like so much going on in there. Just, it's so hard to turn it off. And throughout the day, and there's so much on our minds. And like, even you sit down, you're like, okay, I have to do work. I have a deadline. I have to take care of something. And you're like, you sit down. Okay, not you, me. I'm talking about like people. A lot of us humans, we sit down and then we're like, okay. A few minutes later, like, what's for lunch? Or like, did I take the stuff, switch it from the washing machine to the dryer? Or I wonder what, whatever. Let me just check Facebook for a second, just for a second. Or and it's so hard to focus. It's so hard to like, you know, concentrate on what's important. So it really is like a very our minds are really amazing. Our capabilities are like amazing for us to focus and do so much. And again, once we're thinking and controlling our minds, so many things, then we're able to be way more productive, right? And it's a challenge for us to like multitask and multi think, or whatever you want to say. Reb Chaim Ozer Grudzinski is his name. He said like there's a famous thing that this like big rabbi, he passed away not so long ago,
2 years ago.
100 years ago. So that's a while ago. So he was like, they say he was able to like write with two hands, like two different things, and have a conversation with someone else about something else. Just like three things going on at once, and doing it properly, and have like legible conversation and everything, right? None of us could do that. We think like that's crazy. How does he get that? But I think like sometimes I think, when I was newly married, we moved to Israel. I'm like this 19-year-old schnook, what do I know? Right? And we get married, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like I have to make dinner every day. Like I have to do laundry for two people. Like this is crazy, right? Like it's so hard for me. I'm like a little like overwhelmed. Like every day I have to come up with like dinner. Every day I have to like think of stuff, and it's just like I feel like wow. And now I'm like laughing because like I didn't have a job for the first few years, right? Not like really. Uh, it was just the two of us for what I'm saying, like, and so your mind is like, but then fast forward, let's say like now we have, thank God, 7 children, a pretty crazy job, a pretty crazy household, lots more life stuff and things going on and everything, and I'm like, gosh, like doing laundry for two, like cooking for two, like taking care of a house, like it's a joke, right? But that's how we are as humans. Like it's in our actions and it's in our thoughts, because if you're able to master one thing and take that one thing, and then it just becomes natural to you. So um, it becomes part of your life. It's normal. You don't even think about it, right? And then you're able to take on something else, something else, something else. Our brain is capable of so much. There's so much that we're able to do, but if we're not focused, we're just all over the place. So then we can't do it, right? I don't have to constantly every day, like every minute of my life, think, oh, I have a husband, oh, I have kids, oh, I have a house. It like at some point it just becomes a normal part of your life. Like you have things to do. Oh, I need to go to the bathroom. Oh, I need to eat. You don't have to think about them because they're normal. So you keep adding more things and then you're able to accomplish more. So in our brains, we need to learn to master certain thoughts, certain ideas, and really focus on it, master it, and then you can add something else. You can always, once you're able to, you can focus and you could add so much more in our lives, but we're just so unfocused and so all over the place, and there's so much chaos, right? So much chaos that like we have to train ourselves to focus and to, use our brain.
Right. So there are a couple of things I want to add to what Zehava said is that, Zehava was talking about, being able to zone in and to focus on something. It's very interesting that the Talmud says that 1 + 1 does not equal 2 when it comes to Torah study. Let me explain. If I learn for 1 minute and then I learn for another minute, it does not equal 2 minutes of learning. What it does equal is 2 individual single minutes of learning. But if someone were to learn for 2 minutes straight, that is 2 minutes. And the idea, our sages tell us, for example, Rabbi Akiva. It says that Rabbi Akiva, he went to learn for 12 years, and when he got home, right, got back with 12,000 students, right, escorting him back home, he overheard his wife telling the neighbor, "Oh, I wish my husband went back for another 12 years to learn." And he turned around and went back to yeshiva to learn for another 12 years. So our sages get into a whole discussion as to whether or not he came in, said hello, had a cup of coffee with her, and went back, right? Or did he just turn around right there? And our sages talk over there about the importance of consistency. Consistency leads to this idea of purity, is that 12 years and 12 years does not equal 24 years. Okay? Because there is a certain quality that comes with concentration. There's a certain quality that comes, with that appreciating interest, so to speak, of focus. And what we're trying to attain in life is to have high quality experiences. And the way we get those high quality experiences is with this, like Zehava mentioned, this concentration, this focus, and not having interruption. So when people ask me, Rabbi, what would you recommend? I don't have a lot of time. What should I learn? How should I learn? When should I learn? I said, whenever you do have the ability, let's say it's only 5 minutes that you can learn every day. Read a book, an inspirational book of Torah, right? Make it uninterrupted. Make it 5 minutes that's not interrupted. That's the beauty, by the way, of Shabbos. The Shabbos beauty is that it's concentrated 25 hours of no interruptions, where I don't have my phone, I don't have my computer, I don't have my television, I don't have my car, I have no bills to pay, I have nothing to worry about. This is just concentrated, pure, amazing time with my wife and my children, and I have nothing else in the world. Right? The Torah teaches us this idea of purity, the idea that we don't allow other things to distract us from the quality. A friend of mine told me, I think I mentioned this previously, one of the previous classes, he was on a panel with an individual who said that he was on a cruise with his wife, and the wife is sitting next to him, calling his name, and he's busy looking at his phone the whole time. So she grabbed his phone and threw it off the cruise liner into the ocean. And he's like, "What? Did you have to do that?" But he realized that from that moment on, that vacation became the best vacation they ever had. Because he was all in. He was all there. He had no distractions. Sometimes, many times, in a relationship, that's all that's needed, is no distractions with anything else. No interruptions, nothing else distracting from our focus.
It's a good thing my phone just broke. I haven't had a phone in a few days. It's a little frustrating, but it's also like in a way just it's so like you feel free kind of. You feel like I don't know. I hope I'm not missing anything important, but any important messages. But it takes over. It really takes over so much of your time. What are you saying? Like I really that's what I was thinking. Like Shabbos is really that only time that those all those tabs in my brain. I don't know if they're shut, but they're on sleep. They're shut down for like a little bit, you know. And no matter how crazy and how many things are going on and how many things that have to be taken care of and how many everything. Shabbos, I light the candles. It doesn't matter what. And I work very hard for Shabbos, and I love Shabbos. But it's like the second I light the candles, just like that feeling that just it's peaceful, and like we cause ourselves so much unnecessary torture from all these stuff and all these extra things that we put in our brain, and like we're like really it's like we're torturing ourselves like with this own, you know, like if we learn how to concentrate on things and focus, like you're saying, those 5 minutes. Everyone's like, I don't have time. I don't have time, and I'm preaching to myself here big time because I'm like, you know, like I don't have time to whatever it is, to exercise, to this, to that, whatever you say that things that you feel like that are important to you, but you don't do. If you really just took a like this is it. This is important right now. This is what I have to do. And you say for the next 20 minutes, for the next half hour, for the next hour, whatever it is that you have to take care of, whatever you need to take care of, and you're focused on that. I mean, it's so, but like real, like just, you know, it's hard. It is hard to like focus. Like
Concentrate.
kids, I mean, I think as we get older, it's just harder and harder to concentrate. Kids can sit like one of my kids, I don't want to say names, but one of my kids was just reading a book, and I'm like, I won't say names, but I was calling that child and I said, Ahuva. Oh, maybe I said her name. Ahuva, Ahuva. Like, Ahuva, Ahuva, Ahuva. Hello, Ahuva. I called her name like 20 times. And she's like, I'm like, do you, like, I literally had to like close the book. And she's like, wow, wow. I didn't hear. And I'm like, it's so frustrating, but like that beauty that she was just able to like,
Zone
that
out.
Harry Potter world, you know, and like life is good and she has no other distractions, like nothing else on her mind, right? We don't allow ourselves to just really like, even I think that a lot of times, like when we, you know, sit down for, I try to like take a few minutes, just sit down with a cup of coffee, like just to myself for like a few minutes or something, anything you have to take. And even then, I'm like, shh, like I'm trying to like shush my own brain because it's just like we don't let ourselves. We're just like so much distraction. It's really, I think it's a lost art, concentration, like trying to focus on stuff and just really like focus, like, you know, on like whatever it is and to control this crazy brain, you know?
So it's interesting, you know, Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, the Sephardic leader of the previous generation. He passed away about 5 years ago. Unbelievable man, unbelievable scholar. So he once came to the hospital, and he wasn't feeling well, and the doctor said they're going to have to operate, and it's a very very painful procedure, and they're going to have to give him full anesthesia. So he said, if it's possible, can we do this without anesthesia? He doesn't want to be put to sleep. So they said that it really is a very very painful procedure, and we don't recommend it. So the children are trying to convince him. He says, just give me a Talmud, right? So they takes a book of the Talmud, and after he's looking into the Talmud, he says, give me 3 minutes, and then you can begin the surgery, right? When they were done the surgery, you know, they try to distract him, and they didn't give anesthesia. They didn't. He was just focusing on his Talmud study, right? When they were done the surgery, they like distract him. They're like, "Hello," and he's like, "What?" He says, "Can you guys start the surgery already? Like let's go," right? It's the unbelievable power to focus, to concentrate, to be completely immersed in Torah study is really an incredible thing. Jewish tradition declares um, that the mind has 70 different tracks of thought. And once we learn to concentrate, to use one track, you can get your mind to concentrate on the other 69 tracks. An awful lot goes into our mind. And the first step is gaining control, um, and to learn to concentrate, to master a single track. I'll give you an idea of how this works. Our son, Yehuda, is our miracle baby. Every baby is a miracle baby, but when he was born preemie, 2.5 months early. And one of the challenges of a baby who's born before 36 weeks of gestation is that the child has a difficulty remembering to breathe, because that's what they learn on this 36th week, is that they learn to remember to pump the heart so that they can breathe. So, they need oxygen, and they need the blood to be circulating around the body. So because he was born at 33.5 weeks, he didn't learn that. And when he was in the ICU, in the NICU, I remember we were there, and suddenly there's this loud alarm, and the nurses come running to our little son, and they move the baby. And we're like, what's going on here? What's this alarm? They said, oh, that's when the baby forgets to breathe. Like, forgets to breathe? How does someone forget to breathe? And they explained this to us, is that the brain needs to send a message to our lungs, to our heart to pump, our lungs to respirate, to breathe, right? To remind it to breathe. And it's like, I never thought about that once in my life. But that my brain is sending a signal, right? It's subconscious already, right? Sending a signal, breathe. It's time to breathe. You need more oxygen. You need more oxygen. Breathe, breathe, right? And here, this little child never got that memory into the, right? That's just one channel of our brain. It's probably not even one of those tracks. But imagine you're thinking all these thoughts. You have the thought of what's for dinner. You have to think, oh, I need to buy this child shoes, and this one needs a shirt, and this one needs a suit, and this one needs a this, and this one needs all of these are different channels in our mind, while also thinking, I need to pay this bill, and I need to do this, and I need to do that, right? If we're able to start controlling one channel, one track of our thought at a time, that's the way, Reb Chaim Ozer was able to do all these different things at one time, because he learned to channel each of those tracks and to be in control of it 100%. So that's one of the goals when we're talking about purity, is that when we have these outside influences, it does not give us the opportunity. It doesn't give us the power. It takes away the power of our concentration.
One of those tracks is always for Hashem. That's that we always say Shiviti Hashem Lenegdi Tami, that I always put Hashem before me. That's always not like back burner, back thought, like in the back of our minds, he's there someplace. One of those 70, I think if any of us could, I don't know how this tracks exactly works, but if we can master 5, 10 at a time, like I don't even know how many it's possible. Us simple human folk can master at once, but just that one of those is that we have to train ourselves to always have Hashem as one of those constant in our lives, so that it's like not a second thought, not a this, not a that. It's always part of everything else that we're doing. And then you add something else, and then you add, and then you can have time for your family. And whatever it is that's important to you, you have to master that. If people want to make a serious change in their health, they can't just it has to be they have to really focus on a serious change in whatever it is they're doing in their thoughts, and really focus on that one thing. And then they're able to hopefully master that. And then, I don't know how many of 70, I hope we could get half of those. I don't know. But it's hard. It really takes a lot of effort to train ourselves and not be thinking about. I think all of us have had those moments and times or days that we feel like very, very focused, that we're always like, you feel like really in the moment, like whether it's during like a major life event, at your own wedding, a birth of a child, right before a big job interview, right before a major test, right before whatever it is, that you're like so focused, and people are like, I can't sleep, I can't eat, and I never understood that I can't eat thing. Like there's always time to eat, but like people just you're so focused, you're so like wrapped up in this one thing, like consuming you, right? And nothing else matters. It doesn't matter what the weather is. It doesn't matter if your Amazon package is coming. It doesn't matter if, like, whatever, all the other things that are going on, it doesn't matter because, God forbid, someone's going through a tragedy. Also, like, all the other things, like, kind of, like, they disappear. So we have to really train ourselves. It's so hard. It really is so hard to focus, and get something, master it, and then let in some more stuff, and not let, again, we sometimes let the negative things, we like master those, which we shouldn't. We like take these bad thoughts, bad ideas that come to us, like negative thoughts about ourselves, negative thoughts about other people, whatever it is, and we focus on those. We like like obsess or harbor, or like whatever it is, on these ideas and these thoughts, and that could really consume us and take us over and have a very bad effect on our lives.
Yeah. Most people are existing; they're not living, and it's a huge transformation for a person to change over from a life of existing to a life of living where I enjoy every moment, and it takes this trait of tahara, of purity, of removing all those distractions and just living. And like you're saying, family events, things that happen, life events, right? Many times they just pass by a person without them really saying, wow, what a gift I have. Let me enjoy every single second that I have in this experience. We need to interrupt the daydreaming process and be conscious and live, right? We all have things. We're busy dreaming and hoping and this, and just stop, live. We mentioned previously about the coffee, right? You enjoy coffee? Great. Don't just drink it. Stop for a second. Smell it. Take it in. Live it. Enjoy it. Feel that appreciation for what it is that you have. Apply yourself to the task with single-minded dedication and focus. So when you're doing something, be all in. Focus. Right? That's one of the ways our sages tell us to attain this trait of purity is to not be easily distracted. To not be easily distracted. This is for me a very important thing, right? Because they say, how does a man get the mail, right? So on his way to the mail, he realizes that he needs to cut the lawn, and on the way, so he goes to get the lawnmower, and then he has to clean up the garage, and then he's missing a tool, and then he has to call a friend, and it's like before you know it, he still never got the mail, right? So we need to focus, and we need to concentrate, and we need to know what it is that we're here for, and to enjoy, and to not disappear, not to run away from the important things in life. Um, no,
Yeah.
Incorporating what we study into our behavior is also part of purity. It's a very interesting thing. How many times do we learn something? You're like, something that's really great, and that's it. Nothing changes. You know why? Because of this trait of concentration, of taking an idea and not just leaving it as an idea in my mind, but making it part of who I am, making it part of how I live my life. Is it going to have an impact? How is it going to have an impact? What am I doing to infuse this into my daily experience so that it doesn't just come and go, but rather stays with me forever?
That's all the thoughts that we have constantly. We have so many thoughts at all times during the day. We just, they're all zooming through our brain, right? And we have to stop and, again, filter them. So even if, like, something that you say or people tell you, or whatever it, whatever it is, someone tells you that it's dangerous to use peanut butter is whatever. I'm saying like peanut butter is not good for you. So you could just, okay, like peanut butter is not good for you. Like an an intelligent person might try to like stop and actually think about it, research this, think about it. Like, is that true? Is it not true? Right? Before you can't accept everything blindly. Everything you learn, everything you hear on the news, everything that people tell you about. Let's say like today with Corona, right? We keep talking about Corona. I guess it's like all that anyone thinks about these days, right? Like you can listen to the radio, you can turn on your news feed, whatever it is, and you could hear like so many different things. If you just oh yeah, I heard it, so it must be true, and you like let it enter you, and it can affect you, and you become like paralyzed with fear or whatever it is, right? So stop, think, does this make sense? Is this true? Is this real? Is this not real? Is it like in your brain before it enters the rest of your body, like into your like life? You have to really think about it. Filter it out. And it's just, we have like all these, when we think, you think something because you heard it, or because you grew up thinking that it's true, because your family said so, because your friends said so, because your school said so, because society said so. That's not the right way to live. We have to actually stop and think, is this true? Is this real? Does this make sense? Do we want to have this enter our reality? And like, like everyone, wants to be good and do good things, but when we don't think like what is good, what's real, what's, my daughter and my little nephew were fighting over a toy before, and they're both 2 years old. It's okay, right? And they're both good kids, and they're sweet and they're innocent, right? But in their mind, they want something, so they go for it, right? Adults, we have to think and know what's right, what's good, and make sure that what we were told is right, what we were told is good, really is good, but that we really are doing the right thing, because there are a lot of bad people in the world who think they're doing the right thing, but they're obviously like not good people. We want to use our brain, just focus on things, think things through, and just make sure our thoughts, what people are telling us, our emotions, that we're all in check. Just do a thought through, a second thought before we internalize things.
So there's also, Zehava mentioned about the mitzvah of having one of those channels for God. There's actually a book. We actually did a series on this. It's called The Six Constant Mitzvos. There are 6 mitzvahs which are constant, which you can be observing a mitzvah every second of your life. 6 of them, right? Like believing in God. You can see it. We have it on YouTube. It's on, I believe it's on Facebook as well, but on YouTube for sure. You can search the 6 constant mitzvos, and we have a whole series on each of those 6 ways. We have it at the Torch Center. We have that book. I believe I have it at home as well. But the idea is that if we're able to concentrate, if we're able, then wherever we are, we're able to have that connection, right? And it's not only things that from outside, we can have that constant connection every moment. We need to take a single emotion, right, and experience it to the fullest. How many times do we have an emotion of happiness, for example, and then someone says something to us, so it ruins our happiness? Why does it ruin our happiness? Let's keep that emotion in front of us, that joy, that happiness that we're experiencing, and not let other emotions take over at the time. Right now, I'm experiencing happiness. And let that happiness absorb us, be absorbed within us, and just experience it to the fullest without having a second emotion rush us away from it, and then a third emotion rushing us away from that. Right? I think it's an important. This 9th way is a very important step in our really maximizing life. If we can contemplate one idea at a time and clarify it to its fullest extent. How many times do we have an idea, but we sort of think we have it all worked out, and let's think it through. Let's talk it out. It's okay to disagree with people. That we've established that, right? We don't need to think the way other people think, but let's think through the ideas that we do have. What is it, and bring it to its fully baked thought. My grandfather, I've said this, I believe as well in this class, that when I would ask my grandfather a question, he wouldn't just spit out an answer. He wasn't a vending machine. You put in 2 quarters and you get your Coke, right? That's not the way it worked. You'd come back. I remember I asked my grandfather a question, and I'm like sitting there, new, waiting for an answer. And I would get no answer. I said, so when can I come back? He says, come back in a week or two. What? A week or two? Well, he wanted to think it through. And when he gave through an answer, it was a fully baked, thinking from all perspectives, understanding the full parameters of what we were talking about, and then giving an answer. There's no need to rush, right? To concentrate, to give a well thought answer is more important than to just let me give you a quick 2-second answer and not having thought it through. And the truth is that most of us, if we ever do make a mistake, what would you attribute that mistake to? I wasn't really thinking. I didn't think it through. Well, thinking things through and having that concentration really is an amazing tool to maximizing life.
I think, yeah, I'm saying also then we think things and we say, think what you say and mean what you mean what you say and say what you mean, right? Like a lot of us, we have these things in our head that we think, but we're scared to say it or we're not sure, it also causes like this whole filtering process that I just mentioned 2-3 times. It helps us like have this clarity and confidence about what we're saying, because so many of us say things that we're not even sure if it's the right thing. Is that what we really think? Is that what we really believe? Or is that what's like popular to say? That's like the right thing to say, the right thing to, if you say it, mean it. Like, and if you don't mean it, don't say it. Don't say these things, and think about what message you want to give off before you say something. Like people have these conversations and everyone just wants to say something. They really have nothing intelligent to say. They don't really know what they're talking about. They don't have any expertise on the subject. They don't have anything like, and they just want to like be part of the conversation or sound important or say something, so they'll just
spit it out.
If it's not thought and it's not, properly developed in your mind and you don't believe it and you don't think it's true, we have to like just train ourselves to use our brain. Our brain is so incredible and we don't use it. I don't think we use 1% of what our brain's capability is, and we have to just really use it better.
I think we need to train ourselves to link our emotions to help reach our goals. How many times have we all been inspired by something? We listen to a TED Talks, we listen to a sermon from a rabbi, we go to a class and we're inspired. We say, something? Life-changing. I loved it. It was amazing. It spoke to me. And then the next day we're back to who we were. Right? It's because we need to link that emotion to an action, right? It's not enough for just to be inspired. Wow, I was inspired. It was great. But now, how am I going to implement it and put it into life? I remember when I was in yeshiva, I was 15 or 16 years old. I was living in Israel at the time. And I remember I would hear these lectures from my rabbi, and I didn't want to talk to anyone after the lecture because I wanted to take it all in. And it's like, people then are like, oh, what are we eating for dinner? It's like, oh, just move on with life. No, I don't want to move on with anything yet. I want this to really soak in, right? I want to take it all in. I don't want to run away from it yet. I want to absorb it and put it into action so that it can change who I am and hopefully influence me positively for the future. Success depends largely.
I'm saying like that's the world, is that it's kind of, you're saying like a class you don't think about stuff. I remember took a group of women to Israel, one of our women's trips. It's probably happened more than once. So we go to Yad Vashem or some amazing place. I think the most powerful that I could think of was, let's say, Yad Vashem, and you're there, and your emotions and your thoughts, and you start like thinking about the world, and you start thinking about uh, humanity and how to be a better person and how to be a proud Jew and how to what?
Anti-Semitism.
And you have so many like, your brain, and you get like all right, and then like the tour's over and everyone's like, okay, and it's like heavy, right? And everyone's like, okay, load the buses and we're taking the bus to Ben Yehuda and everyone go get falafel, like, and really like you don't, as humans, we don't give ourselves the time, the space, the focus to process. It's not just thoughts, it's emotion, right? That is important. It's not just thoughts, it's emotions. If you feel something, act on it, like internalize those emotions. And again, only the good ones, because the bad ones you don't want to internalize because that cause damage. But if you have these emotions, so do something, write it down. Also, like, you have things you want, I want to do something, and then you just let that go. Say it, like, write it down, say it out loud, say, today I'm gonna do this. Once you say it, you have a better chance of doing it. Or if you tell a friend, so you have accountability for whatever it is. But there's so much that goes through your brain. Take the good stuff, focus on it, concentrate, and make that like important.
There you go. So success depends largely on the intensity of ambition. And when we have ambition and when we have a desire to accomplish, we have a much greater ability to succeed. We need to take an emotion and pump it up, right? Pump up an emotion, get yourself inspired, get yourself to, to go to do it, and you can overcome so much, so much blockage and so much insanity, right? We need to block out insanity, right? If you know that there are things that you watch or the things that you read that infuriate you, don't watch it and don't read it. There's no, right? Block it out, right? And it doesn't mean that you're being closed-minded. It means that you're a person who wants to invest in happiness, and you prefer happiness than frustration and anger, right? It's a very good thing. If you know that there's a certain show that you'd watch or news that you watch or a certain, don't watch it. Don't agonize yourself. Don't bring yourself to a point of frustration with, right? And again, this is all leads back to what we started with, is purity, not allowing ourselves to be influenced by all these outside forces. You are the gatekeeper of your own environment, right? You are the gatekeeper of your environment, and if you allow things in, you'll be influenced by it. The Mishnah I mentioned earlier is in Ethics of Our Fathers, chapter 6, Mishnah 9, where he said, come live with us in our place. And what did he say? He responded back, I will only live in a place of Torah. It means if it's a place of Torah, right, I'm allowing myself to be influenced by that. But I'm not willing to be in a place where there's just, craziness, and now you just want me to be with you to sort of justify. Many times that's what people do, is they try to justify what they're doing by look at all the people we have with us. Look how many followers we have. And that's not necessarily a good indication. If you allow yourself to be influenced, you will be influenced, right? And that's the bottom line. I remember there's a story about Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, and I love stories about Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. He was such a special scholar and such a special man. He was once in a disagreement with several other rabbis, secularized modern rabbis that he was arguing with on a specific issue. And at the end, he gave his halachic ruling. And they asked him, why are you giving this ruling? And why should it be according to your opinion that we follow? So he explained, and he said as follows. He says, I'm right because I have not been influenced by outside sources. He says, I've never watched movies. I've never read secular books. I've never been influenced by outside sources. So my opinion is purely Torah. right? It's a very interesting, very, you know, strong perspective that he had on this matter. But the idea of purity, right? The soul that we have is pure, right? So just in conclusion here, um, emotions and intellect can become pure with a little bit of training, right? Which gives us control over our decision-making capabilities. We all have so many influences. We have so many influences around us. If we could just shut out a few of them, right? A few of them, to give us the influences that we want, the ones that make us happy, the ones that make us feel loved, the ones that make us feel secure, right? Imagine how much goodness that will bring into our lives if we're able to just block out one or two of those negative influences. All right? So, my dear friends, want to thank you all for joining us today. Zehava, do you have anything?
Thank you.
And we're going to go off of Facebook. If anybody has any questions, you're welcome to share it here in the torchzoom.com. And to our friends online, thank you so much for joining us. Please like and share these videos. And we're looking forward to seeing all y'all next week.